The EU has today approved €500 million worth of military aid for Ukraine, but all eyes are still on Berlin as pressure mounts to supply German-made Leopard tanks to the country. Poland and Finland say they're ready to give the vehicles to Ukraine, but Germany holds the export licence required to pass them on and is concerned about the move escalating this war. In a growing split, several Ukrainian allies have rejected this position, arguing there is no good reason why battle tanks shouldn't be provided. Well, one such country is Latvia. His Prime Minister, Krisjanis Karins, joins me now live from Riga. Thank you so much for taking the time this afternoon. We really appreciate it here on Sky News. Perhaps in this latest development in supplying weapons and equipment to Ukraine, you can explain to us where Latvia stands right now.
Latvia's stance is very clear. Ukraine needs weapons to win the war. This is a war by Russia against Ukraine. It's a war of imperialism. That means they are back in the old game of territorial conquest and apparently just basically trying to annihilate the Ukrainian nation in all ways. We have to understand that if Ukraine does not win, then everyone has a huge problem because Russia, there's no indication that it would stop or it would be interested in stopping. So we have to help Ukraine stop Russia, and that can only be done with supplying of weapons. We've been doing so since before the war started. We have been supplying as much as we can. We're about 1% of our GDP in our military aid. Then we have grassroots aid coming from all segments of our society with vehicles, generators, food equipment, medical equipment, doctors also helping out. So it's a full national effort to aid the Ukrainians because we understand they are fighting the war in all of our places. They are defending freedom and democracy and the right to national sovereignty, and they deserve and they need our help.
Yeah, they need so much aid of all different forms, but the focus does very much seem to be on the supply of tanks. And President Zelensky has said, look, this is what we need to not just maintain the status quo and survive, but to thrive and go on to win this war. Countries like yourself are offering up tanks. The UK put its head above the parapet first and said that it would supply a number of tanks between 12 and 14. But people are looking at Berlin and Germany not coming forward to provide their tanks. What do you think the reasoning is behind that in terms of Germany not standing with you to send tanks directly to Ukraine?
Well, let's remember that Germany has a 70, almost 80-year history of pacifism prior to this war. And I think that maybe it's taken a little bit of time to sort of rethink that position. Certainly, one has to admit that Germany has been supplying all kinds of aid to Ukraine, including very important anti-aircraft the systems, the Patriot, another German-made system. So this is all very good and necessary, but it's also clear that Zelensky is saying that they need the offensive weapons to drive the Russians out of their territory. And it basically comes down to more heavy equipment. We're giving the heaviest equipment that we have. We don't have these main battle tanks. We've given them howitzers. We're giving them Stingers. We're helping to train them, drones, et cetera, et cetera. But if we can give 1% of our GDP in military aid, well, then certainly other countries can do the same. And those that have the heavy equipment, I think it's a moral responsibility to let that equipment help Ukraine expel an invader. And this is very clear that is simply what we as democratic countries, we have to aid one another. Ukraine is now under incredible pressure. And Zelensky is right. They do not need only to endure this atrocity. They need to win the war.
I take on board your point about the historical context of Germany wanting to supply tanks to another country. It's an extremely sensitive issue for that country. Can the tanks be effective, though, without German involvement? I think it was the German Minister for Economic Affairs who said there's a difference between making a decision of your own accord and hindering the decision of others. Germany is saying, look, we've got no problem, we hold the licence, but if you want to send those tanks to Ukraine, we're not going to stand in your way. But will Ukraine get what it needs if Germany don't send their tanks? Because we're talking about numbers here. President Zelensky saying, we need numbers of tanks. We don't need 10 from one country, 10 for another. We need the numbers. Is Germany vital to the success of that?
Germany is Europe's largest economy. Germany has one heck of a potential. Of course, from the continent, we have the UK, we have France, we have other countries giving a lot. But for the effort to really be successful, from the European point of view, we need Germany fully on board. And I think it's important for all of us that we have a unity in Europe right now, in the EU, across NATO. This is very important that we keep it. We have to endure, but they are sometimes very tough decisions internally to take. For many countries, countries are sending their stockpiles, which are meant for their own defense. Moving them into Ukraine. So these are very tough decisions to take, but they're necessary decisions. And I think it's quite important that Germany is fully in line with all the rest of us. And Germany's potential, certainly compared to my own country, is quite a difference. 80 million versus 2 million. So it's very important that Germany is fully on board.
In the meantime, you're pressing ahead with your individual actions as a nation in terms of supplying Ukraine, particularly with tanks, and you're banding together with a number of other Eastern European countries to form a coalition, if you like, to send those out there and give the country what it needs. How quickly can you get them there? Because we keep hearing about how there needs to be training time involved. It takes a while to get the tanks into position. How quickly can you move on this to make it effective for Ukraine?
Once again, just to be precise, if we had tanks, we would send them. We don't have tanks, we have howitzers. We've sent the howitzers. In terms of training, this is something that needs to be ongoing all the time. We have trained in the past, we're training now, and we will train in the future. But I don't think that it can work as an excuse, because the Ukrainian military has proven time and time again that they are extremely adept at learning new systems, adapting those new systems, taking care of maintaining those new systems. They have our trust, and we need to really let them work. And all of the practical issues, they can be solved. What is difficult is overcoming the political decision. The political decision has to be clear, a green light to give Ukraine all that we have, each of us individually, and then collectively, that is what Ukraine needs. So the training can be done. They're using Patriot systems. They're using the German, I think it's called the ISIS system, the anti-air. They're using all kinds of howitzers, including the ones that we've given them. They're learning all kinds of new weapon systems, and by the end of this war, they'll be teaching us how best to use them.
Prime Minister, indeed. Thank you so much for your time. It's the Prime Minister of Latvia there, Krisjanis Karins, here on Sky News, talking about the sending of equipment to Ukraine. Eastern European countries coming together to send military equipment and aid.